Hey guys, Mr. Ludd here. Going to work with you today on Thursday, May 14th. On this video, we're going to go over the paper that you see on the screen here. This is day 14, May 14th. We'll go through the math section, and then I'll also take you through the challenge problems on the next page. Okay, so let's get right into it. Today we're going to be looking at mean and median, and we're going to make some choices. We're going to calculate mean and median for a couple data sets, and then make some choices about which summary data or which representation we should use, mean or median, to explain this data to another person. So we'll get into that. The first thing we need to do, though, is just a quick little review. We're looking at data both in data tables as it's written down with numerical values, and we're also looking at data as it forms a shape in a graph or a line plot. And so we're going to use that background knowledge to fill in the missing letters here. The mean and the median can vary depending on the overall shape of the data. Today you'll continue your work with the shape of data. So we are going to get into, that's all we have to do on this page. The rest is just a bit of a review here. I'm going to take you over to page 338. So these are the challenge problems here. It says choose the best measure. And so what you'll see is this data table with cities and populations at the top of your page. So let's get into it here. Before I get started, before I go through this, I will tell you I did my best to keep my work on the page. If you're working on this at home, you might have trouble fitting all your math thinking in the margins on this page. You might find it a lot easier to use a little piece of notebook paper or scrap paper or something like that to show your work. I just try to keep it here so that you guys can see as much of my thinking on one page as I can. Okay, so that's just, if it's a little crowded today with writing in the margins, just bear with me, but that's just on purpose to try to keep it all contained on one page. Okay, so we're going to choose the best measure. Let's read our instructions and our background info here. So it says estimates of the populations of 7 cities in Colorado are shown in the table at the right here. Populations have been rounded to the nearest 1,000. Okay, nice, makes sense. So problem 25 says calculate the mean of the data. So to calculate the mean, I add all my populations up, and I've done that right here, 17,000, 18,000. Adding them up here all the way across, I make sure I include every single one. And then I divide by 7 because there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cities that we are taking a look at here. So I divide by 7. When you add them all up, I have 168,000 for total population. I divide that by 7, I get a nice answer of 24,000 exactly. And when you're doing these, by the way, I think I've mentioned this in the past few videos, but when we're adding up values like this, really strongly recommend grabbing a calculator. Remember, on every phone and every computer, there's a calculator app already built in. iPad, that kind of stuff. So you guys know where to find these. So if you don't have one of the little handheld calculators at home, you can use a parent's device or your own device or whatever is convenient for you. But definitely using a calculator, just really, the reason I say that is it just makes adding up these larger numbers a lot less time consuming. And you might as well use the tools that you have at home. So there we go. So our mean was 24,000. The next was the median of the data. So all I have to do to calculate the median, I don't really even have to calculate, but I have to order the data from smallest to largest. And you can see that I've ordered it here. 16,000 is the smallest, 66,000 is the largest. Everything else, of course, fits in between. And then I just find the middle number. There's 7 numbers, so there's one middle number, and it's just 17,000. So that's that, the median of the data. Okay, simple enough there. Let's get into the part where we really have to put on really have to think carefully about how to answer this next part. So let's read 27. How could you summarize the populations of all 7 cities using only one number? In other words, we're going to use either the number here, the mean here, or the median here. So we're going to use one or the other, but we have to choose which one. And I'll walk you through why I chose the one I chose. Would you choose the mean or the median to summarize the population and give a reason? Okay. So if you're looking at the data here, I'm like 17,000, 18,000, 17,000, 66,000, 70,000, 16,000, 17,000. I notice a pattern or sort of a trend that most of the cities have a population somewhere in the 10,000s, right? 17,000, 16,000, 18,000, etc. And if I look at my two data here of mean versus median, mean is 24,000, and that's a meaningful number. I mean, that's a true calculation of this data. The median, however, is 17,000. That's also a meaningful number. I'm going to choose the median here because the median is so much closer to the city of Montrose. The median is so much closer to the city of Erie. The median is so much closer to Kansas City's population number. In other words, it's just more meaningful. It just makes more sense. If I was trying to share this data with someone who didn't know anything about these cities, the median would just be a better representation. It's closer to most of the city's population. Either one would be okay to summarize it with, but it's important when we're using data and we're calculating mean, median, and these types of things that we understand why we're calculating it and how we would use that calculation to communicate our thinking with others and how we would like to share this knowledge with others. And again, the median is just so much closer to the average, or sorry, to the populations here in our data set. So that's my answer, and that's kind of my reason. I just wrote it out there. Basically, what I just explained verbally is what I wrote on my paper. So you can take a look at that. And we'll do the same thing here for the second part of the page. So it's basically the same concept, except on this table here, we've got some earnings from week 1 and earnings for week 2. Let's take a look and we'll read our instructions here and then see what we can make sense of these. So it says Rachel has a new part-time summer job. She works 3 days per week. Her earnings on the first 2 weeks are shown in the table on the right. So she works 3 days per week. So one day she made 20 bucks, another day she made 40 bucks, another day she made 30 bucks. That's all from week 1. And then similarly over here for week 2. Calculate the mean earnings per day each week for week 1 and week 2. So week 1 I did it here in this light purple. I add up my values from week 1, 20 plus 30 plus 40, get a total value of 90. I divide by 3 because there are 3 days that she's working. And of course 90 divided by 3 is 30. So $30 for week 1 goes right there. Sorry, the shade is even making that a little bit difficult to read, but that is a 30. And then I do the same exact process for week 2. I did it in red pen here. 40 plus 10 plus 40 divided by 3. So 40 plus 10 plus 40 is 90. 90 divided by 3 once again is 30. So the mean for each week is 30. Okay. Calculate the median earnings per day for each week. So here is week 1 in green pen. I just list my earnings from smallest to largest, 20, 30, 40, and middle value is 30. Similarly, over here for week 2, I list them from smallest to largest, 10, 40, 40, and the median is the middle number, 40. Okay, so I just copy those answers down for the blanks there. Now, once again, I have median for the weeks, and I have I have means for the weeks and medians for the weeks. And now I have to think about which one would I choose to summarize here for this final part? Which one would I choose to summarize the data? And this is one of those types of questions, just like the one above about city populations. We need to think, just kind of use your reasoning skills here. Which one of these numbers represents a better representation of how much she earned? And so my thinking is that she should use the mean here for the summary number. The pay does change somewhat from one day to the next. You make $20 one day and $40 next. That's a pretty big change. But when we calculate all that out and we find the mean, for both weeks, she averaged out 30 bucks a day for both weeks. And that's really, if you're thinking about a job, really what you want to know is, how much do I make per day? How much do I make per week? How much do I make per month? And so that's just kind of using my reasoning skills there and thinking, well, the most important number is the average over the week. We know as people who work that some days you make more money and some days you make less money. The average is what's important. You can't necessarily control the up and down nature of earnings, but you can understand the earnings as an average, as a nice even. Okay, so she should use mean for the summary number. The only reason I wouldn't choose median here is because the median from 1 week is 30, which is the same as the mean, but for week 2 it's 40, and that 40 could be sort of misleading if you thought, oh, well, the middle number she made was 40, and then you have a day where you only make $10 that day, and you're expecting to make 40. That's a little bit frustrating. And so we want to use the number that gives us the most accurate, the most meaningful representation of our earnings. Okay. So the mean communicates the overall consistency of the data between the 2 weeks. And it is something that this is one of those things that if you were in the workforce, which you are not because you're in 6th grade, good for you. But as you get in there, this will be something you'll be able to make more sense of. Okay. So today we just kind of calculated the mean and median of a couple different data sets, and we used our reasoning skills to decide which summary value to use to represent our data. All right, that's all the time we're going to have for this video. Thank you for watching. Please keep the questions coming through our Zoom classroom meetings, through YouTube comments, Google Classroom comments, text, remind. Keep working hard out there, guys, and I will see you guys later.